I'm here with Travis Gray, a therapist, trauma therapist, relationship therapist. We're going to talk now about relationships.
All right.
And how much you see today the masculine energy in women, and you see the feminine energy in men.
It's a pandemic.
It's a pandemic. I've never seen anything like it.
Yes.
And we know how it's destroying relationships. It's I don't know, maybe it's the consciousness. But let's talk about it and how much this is rooted in wounded masculinity.
Sure.
Or let's talk about what you've seen and also what you've gone through yourself.
Whew. Yeah. I mean, even if I were to start with my own personal experience, you know, there was definitely a time in my life where I was much more agreeable and more on the passive side of showing up my relationships. And because of my lack of leading, and again, the lack of leading wasn't due to like necessarily a character defect. It was just like a lack of not being taught. I grew up in a space where I had no father. He split at a very young age. So I had very little male role models, if any. That was far and few between.
Right.
And I was basically raised by an emotionally absent, almost shell of a mom who wasn't really there. And so there was really no one to teach me anything growing up. And so the part of me that was always like a very sensitive soul from a young age, right? A very thoughtful, sensitive soul. I was kind of going around projecting my sensitive nature onto everyone else, just trying to be kind because I didn't really like conflict. Conflict made me uncomfortable in my body,
Right.
And eventually I just would begin to almost like pass on difficult conversations. And the concept wasn't even in my mind to learn how to stay in my masculine frame.
Right.
And how to lead because nobody taught me how to do it. So it was a very low level of consciousness for many, many, many years. And by doing so, I would, again, unconsciously attract women that would tend to be more masculine, that would, if there was a space there and if there was a heavily opinionated woman, she would just take that space. Let's just do it this way. I'm like, well, as long as we're getting along, I guess it's okay.
Right.
And that was kind of my motto for a while. But all that ended up doing was it led me into a space where I felt eventually unheard, invalidated, and I tried to put an idea in or something, or whatever that would have been. It ended up leading to some kind of conflict, or it wasn't received well, it wasn't respected. And so me being the kind of person I was at that time, I was more conflicted. And I couldn't stay in my masculine energy.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is, you're saying that a lot of this is coming from over mothers or under fathers.
Yeah, or just maybe just like a lack of just kind of being, for all intents and purposes, kind of like trained on how to show up for life.
How to show up for life.
Right, because as parents, like our job is to tune into our children and create a lot of safety for them and then kind of prepare them for what it means to get ready for the world.
Kindness, and at the same time, kindness and, discipline and also kindness. But
that's right.
Have right and left.
Yes.
Not too much of the right, not too much of the left.
That's right, because if you have too much of one or the other, that leads to also psychopathology and problems.
Right.
Right?
How much do you see that people attracting certain people based on their energetic level?
It's all energy.
It's all energy.
It's all energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like think about it. Like the quintessential guy that goes to the gym, he's on his 10th cycle of steroids, right? He's a, big muscular guy, whatever, and a woman might see him. And because he's so physically strong, that naturally activates something inside her energetically. She feels safer because he's so strong.
He's so strong, right.
And then when she gets close enough to get to really know him on a relational level, and she realizes he's actually profoundly insecure, controlling, or abusive, or invalidating, then he's not really safe.
Right.
And then she has to flee from that, right? But it's all really energy, essentially. So, and this is really interesting, the energy aspect, because you see this in same-sex couples too. There's normally going to be, out of the two women or two men, there's normally one of them much more masculine and one is much more feminine.
Feminine, correct.
One's agreeable.
Yeah, even if they're both right. Even if
exactly.
they're both exactly the same color.
Exactly. So this is all about the polarity of masculine and feminine.
That's wild.
So me having my experiences in the past with very masculine women, realized how that didn't sit well with me at all.
Right.
And I really didn't like it. And then it started creating resentments and issues. And on the other side, they would look at me, well, why aren't you leading? Why aren't you leading? And that would lead to contempt and lack of respect. And of course, the Gottmans,
of course, one of the worst things is contempt.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
That's the killer of all intimacy.
Yeah, contempt, looking down, right?
Yeah, to look at someone and be like, like disrespect, like
right,
with judgment,
right,
like that'll kill a person. It makes them feel unsafe, devalued.
Right.
And I can't open my heart open with you if you're like that.
And you see today that women, because of they're too much in their masculine.
Yes.
And it could be again bad childhood.
Mm-hmm.
They want to control, they want to criticize, compete,
Yes.
and they don't know how to receive. And
That's right.
And I had a class on this
Mm-hmm.
in LA, where I'm like, we sort of have the same problem in heaven. Our Creator wants to give us, but we don't know how to receive. We want to
Right.
be control. We want to be hyper independent.
Yes.
We want to be. We want to control the outcome. So at the
Yes.
end of the day, we're not. Are we making space? Are we able to receive properly? And I think this relationship in heaven is mirroring the relationship with people.
Completely.
And how frustrating it is not to be able to give to somebody and receive. It's the same thing in heaven. Heaven wants to give us. Our Creator wants to give us, and we don't know how to receive.
We don't know how to receive.
We don't know how to receive.
Because we've
So it's
convinced
such an
ourselves
important
either we
thing.
don't deserve it, or he's not good,
Right.
or I have to be.
Or how do I know How do I know if it's gonna work? If I
Yeah.
do it now, maybe I'm
Yes.
gonna let down.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is such a problem receiving today.
It's a massive
Yeah,
problem.
and I think the women are exhausted. They're exhausted. They're not attracting masculine men.
Yes.
Because a masculine man is not going to end up with a girl who's competing with him, and
Yeah, of course not.
either she backs down or
Yeah,
that's it.
that's it.
So it's so important today how much relationships is energetic level.
It's all energy,
Yeah.
and because I need to be able to feel safe with you,
Correct.
and that means I need to be in my God-given role to do that.
Right.
So from the biblical order, God is the head, and then the relationship, He puts man over the responsibility of the relationship, and then the woman is under him.
Right.
Right. This is the biblical order. This isn't. But if you think about what's really happened in the world today, if there really was a spiritual adversary, if there really was a devil, he would want to do anything he can to
destroy.
invert everything
Correct.
and destroy that.
You know who was the first person that did that? Paro. In Egypt, he had the males do the woman's job and the woman do the male's job.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah.
He knew how to screw the system.
That's right.
Yeah. He knew how to screw the system.
Yeah, that's right. Because there's this kind of divine order.
Yeah.
So
So this is like, it's becoming like a vicious pattern today, because men are, they get rejected,
mm-hmm.
and sometimes they're getting rejected and they're not really getting better from the rejection.
Correct.
And they said, well, if I'm getting rejected, then I might as well go and turn to porn.
Yes.
I might as well go turn to, forget getting married. I'll
Prostitution
just
or
turn to a girl. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go get rejected.
Yeah.
And then what's happening is people keep on rejecting themselves.
That's right.
So it's very important, even if you get rejected by a woman, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
she's in the wrong energy, doesn't mean you're gonna get rejected by all women.
That's
That's
right.
something you have to be very, very careful with. Just because you got rejected by some girl who's in a very masculine energy,
Yes.
doesn't mean there's not another woman that's gonna not take you.
Absolutely. And two things to that. Number one, I think you and I know really well, any form of quote unquote rejection in our life is God's redirection for us.
100%. Rejection is redirection. Exactly.
That's right. It's Hashem leading us somewhere else.
Right.
To where we're supposed to be.
Right.
And so I believe that, and I know that because this is a part of bitahon. This is a part of trust.
Right.
This
How'd
is
you learn the Hebrew words?
Oh, well, because I've had a lot of your clients.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. So,
See that?
yes.
Where are you from originally?
Where was I born?
Yeah.
California.
Oh, California. Nice.
Yeah. I come from California.
Beautiful.
Yeah. But I've been all over the U.S., and so I landed here a long time ago, and I'll be here for a while longer, so redirection from God coming in our life is trusting. He's trying to show us again through the mirrors of the
Right.
relationship, like, hey, are you being submissive? Are you being passive when you need to be leading? Right? Because whenever I have a kind of an anxiety in my life, it's because there's something I'm supposed to be doing,
But I'm not.
but I don't know how to step into it, or I don't know how to really own it and embody it. And I can't hold that energy in myself because once I hold the energy in myself, everything's very effortless,
Right.
right? But for a lot of times we're all running these stories, right, in our minds. And this is the programming that comes from the family of origin. Sometimes we grow up in single parent homes like I did, look at this, look at that. Okay. But then once I'm trying to go out in the world and have all experiences, right, and show up and take up the space that belongs to me, and above all, to be in my purpose that God gives me. Because without purpose, that's really 80% of my happiness is to be in my purpose. 20% is fun and activities. And
Exactly.
whatever. But it's mostly purpose, So if I'm in my purpose, then I'm like, oh, okay, God, so I'm doing what you asked me to do. I'm stepping the energy you asked me to step into. And ultimately for a man that knows his value, that really owns his masculine frame, that's in his purpose, he's going to naturally attract
Right.
a feminine woman that's going to be kind of the helpmate, right? The Ezra Konepko.
Because God, right, Ezra Kego, because God allows it to brings that. So one of the things that I have seen, and again, why my classes are so effective,
Yeah.
is because I really talk about real issues.
Yes.
We're not talking about, but what's happening a lot is for the toughest struggle for males is their sexual energy,
Definitely.
because their sexual energy is supposed to be used to give to their wives.
That's right.
Or to give to their significant others. And by them giving, they're actually making their wives happy. That's one of the things we have to sign in a marriage contract.
That's
What
right.
happens is if a male is using a sexual energy only to receive, what happens, she doesn't get the light, and then everybody loses.
That's right.
It's like almost talking, imagine if I'm talking, to a bunch of Chinese workers, and I'm giving them a class, like I'm wasting my words.
Definitely.
And I'm nobody's receiving anything. So it's very, very important that we have to give to receive. We have to
Yes.
give. We have to give to receive. We have to give to others. Give to give. When males just go into relationships just to receive,
Yes.
they become the feminine role.
That's right. Or they become a very corrupted version of the masculine.
Right.
That's just takers.
That's just takers.
That
And
just
this
takes.
is a cosmic disaster, and it affects
Yes.
financial conditions because it makes you feel depressed. When
Definitely.
you're not doing the right thing, it makes you feel shame. And this is today. The weak guys are blaming all the girls. Oh, these girls are just gold diggers. All these girls are going to divorce you. All these girls are going to do this because they've rejected themselves. Their excuse is, oh, these girls, all they want to do is take your money, and they're all OnlyFans and all that. So you could see on both sides. You could see when people are not in the right energy, they're frustrated. They just blame the system.
Yeah, that's right. Because it's easier to blame and deflect
Correct.
than it is to like really evaluate yourself in your own heart. Hey, what am I really doing here?
Correct.
Right? Because if I don't have the life I want, do I have the power to change that? Right? Is this my spiritual birthright to transcend any story of lack?
Right.
And I believe it is for all of us.
And that's the question. Do you when people are dating, are you making space for somebody else?
Yes.
Are you in your right energy? As a woman, are you able to receive?
Yes.
Or are you too competitive? Have you fixed your daddy issues? Have you fixed your issues with your? And sometimes it's very good at work. This masculine energy, but at the end of the day, it could be terrible in a relationship.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible. At the end of the day, it's like there's so many, I think, women, especially in our culture, that have romanticized the idea of kind of being this independent boss babe, and I want to go do these things. But it's very hard to kind of change hats when you get home and then being feminine, right?
Correct.
It's very hard to do that.
Correct.
So when women start to make a certain amount of money, they only want to date a guy of equal or higher financial assets, right? And so when you really start to, and they start going through this list of what they want, right? I want this guy over 6 feet, I want this. Well, okay, by the time you narrow it down, all these things, you're probably looking at maybe less than 1% of the population fall into all of the criteria that you think you want.
Yeah.
And that's not including their character, they have a relationship with God. That's not including.
And assuming they want to get into a relationship and not have fun.
And on top, and on top of that, assuming that person is actually going to like you, right? And if you're not very feminine, someone like that is not going to really want that. And I've had a lot of clients, a lot of women in my practice, very, very guarded, very masculine, and they're like, "Why can't I find a relationship?" I'm like, "Well, do you want the hard truth?" And I'll tell you. Because for a real healed, spiritual, mature, masculine man with emotional intelligence,
he won't go for that.
He's not interested in that.
No way. Yeah.
He's not interested in the energy because it's too combative.
No. But, I mean, you can't battle at work and battle at home. It
doesn't work.
It's not a possibility.
No,
It's not a possibility.
Yes, that's right. I mean, that's why Solomon writes in the Proverbs, "It's better for a man to dwell on the corner of the rooftop than to live with a contentious wife."
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's like it's misery in a way. And so there's something inside of us that, again, going back to, if I was really the spiritual enemy of this world and I want everyone to be deceived,
Yeah, I would do this. Correct.
and like I would promote this agenda to say that somehow being married and having kids is some old antiquated ideology. That's not a blessed life for you as a female, right? Go out and get these nice things and pursue your own career and become your own powerful, independent person.
But it's happening today. That's what social media is portraying. It's
of course.
telling guys, what are you getting married? These girls are going to take half of your money.
Yes.
What do you need them? And then it's turning really, really into a toxic environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and without again, the problem is without God, it's just
Yeah.
hell's breaking loose.
Exactly, because God brings divine order.
Yeah,
You know, and what really marriage is, it's one man and one woman mutually submitted to God in obedience to Him, and then loving each other, honoring each other in their respective roles.
you know, in Hebrew we say the word isha is woman, and man is ish. So if you take they both have ish. One has a yud, and one has a hey. So if you take the yud hey, a yud hey in Hebrew is God.
Yeah,
It's God's name, yud hey.
yeah,
If you take the yud hey out, what do you get? You get the word esh, fire. So when you take godliness out, all you're getting is fire. Now, what does fire mean? Emotional distress.
probably chaos.
Yeah. So this is why we have, even in Judaism, we have nida. We have a lot of things to tame the energies, certain things, because when it gets too much, there's no godliness. It's just fire.
Yeah,
It's just fire. And these are the odds that we're dealing with today.
Yes.
If somebody doesn't know how to submit, if somebody doesn't know how to step up, if people have all dealt with wounds, and it creates real problems. But again, the girls that are in masculine energy, you will not attract that masculine guy that you want. You're going to attract you're going to attract the weaker guy because of you're in that energy.
Yeah, well, they're either going to attract a very, very weak man
Yeah.
that's very passive and submissive, or they're going to attract a hyper toxic masculine man
Right.
that has no empathy. And both of those, she either has no respect for this guy,
Right.
right? So,
Or she's controlled by that guy.
or she's controlled and invalidated, and she's not safe with
Like
this
an
other
Andrew Tate, the Andrew Tate styles, the Dan Bilzerians.
one. Yeah, like all the
the
red
low
pill
lives,
stuff, right?
yeah.
And so it's like you get one of the springs of the spectrum, and both they don't want.
Correct.
So the only way for that to do this, for women to say, hey, well, what does it mean for me to be feminine? Because that's their inner work. And the same way for a man to get his inner work that says, what does it mean for me to be a true masculine leader,
Right.
and to study the art of that, and then to embody that and hold that energy, and learn how to lead.
Right.
You
But
know?
some people can't handle success. That's the problem. It gets to their head. So even if a woman is very successful, which is nothing wrong with it, just look at it as a blessing. Don't look at it as I'm doing better than you. I'm outdoing you. It's not a competition, because God takes away blessing, and He gives it, and He takes it away.
Absolutely.
He gives it and takes it away.
Because if you get into that space of ego, right? Ego is contrary to spirit, right?
Right.
Because God is love,
Right.
and even in that love, like, for example, like in the New Testament, there's a book called James chapter 3, James chapter 3. There's a verse in there when it talks about the wisdom that's from above, it says that it's first peaceable, and it says it's willing to yield. Like I don't have to be right. You don't have to agree with
Right.
everything. I don't have to be in
It's
control.
flexible.
There's a degree of flexibility that honors you being where you are,
Right.
There's a wisdom from above. But if I'm an ego and it's got to be this way, that's why you see two people with very strong, disagreeable personalities. It's almost like someone who's disagreeable in their temperament, they need someone more disagreeable than them to contain them,
Interesting.
right? Like you need a stronger energy to contain me, but even then, I'm not safe to be vulnerable. And there's not a lot of like love in that space.
Right.
It's just it's almost like an energy shaking hands. I see you. We're agreeing on this, and this is the highest level of intimacy that we can hold. Is this? But it's not really connecting from the heart. And like if we're not here for love and connection, if we're not here to bring God,
that's without love and connection, you don't have much.
I mean, because Gedale, you think about it, all we're really trying to do is to bring God to one another.
Yeah.
And love and presence, and like, hey, like wherever you are, you're safe, and I'm still going to speak truth to you in a way. But you're allowed to be yourself, and I just genuinely want the best for you, and there's no competition.
Right.
I can celebrate all the great things that you're doing, you celebrate the things I'm doing, and we all have our space and with this walk in this world, right?
I think the hardest thing is to transform the receiving to giving.
Yes.
So even our sages tell us that the women were responsible for the redemption, because they were able to change the spirits of the men.
Yes.
So also you have to be careful. Women have to be careful to not demasculate men.
Yes.
And to encourage them.
Yes.
And to say even if they're having hard times and they're trying, no, you're not making enough money. You know what? Thank you so much. All they want to do is, when you appreciate them, you're giving to them, and they want to do more to give to you. Like everybody wins.
That's simple.
Everybody wins.
men are so simple. They
They're
really
so
are.
simple.
Men are so simple.
Exactly.
Like if you honor their,
As long as the men are doing the right thing and they're the most simplest people in the world.
we're so simple. Like if you can honor a man's need to be needed, and to know
Yeah.
that we're all running our own stories,
Yeah.
right? Hey, am I enough in the world? Am I good enough? Do I feel competent at what I'm doing? Am I in my purpose? If I can actually be in that space and have a woman behind me that speaks life to me,
Right.
I'm proud of you. I believe in you. I love you. No matter what, we're gonna pray through this. We're gonna
Right. It
trust
makes
God.
such a difference.
It makes
Yeah.
the whole difference.
Such a difference.
It makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. And this is why, and the tikkun, the rectification for a lot of women is because 10 measures of speech came to the world, they got 9 of them. So if you just understand this concept of like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Totally.
So you can say things the wrong way,
Yeah.
and even though you mean well, it can demasculate and kill the guy.
Yeah. Because
So also you have
words
to
are
be careful
energy.
with your, just like men have to
Yeah.
be careful with their eyes, women have to be careful with their speech.
Yes.
How they speak and how
Yes.
they put people down and how they criticize. Just
Yeah.
that's your rectification. Speech. Ours is our eyes. Theirs
Yeah.
is speech.
Yeah, too. And I think in this relationship one to another, intersex and intrasex,
Yeah.
even in these relationships, like if God's given you the gift of spiritual sight, like higher consciousness, it's the ability to really love people kind of where they are.
Right.
Like if you can kind of see beyond a little bit, and if you sense what's happening in this person's schemas and their beliefs and their insecurities, their fears, to kind of love them and speak words of life to them in a way that they've been wounded, right? Because that's the will of God for us, is to bring love and truth and God
Right.
one to another. Because if we're not here for one another, Gedale, like what are we actually here for?
Exactly.
Correct.
That's it. I think Ram Dass had a great line. He says the best thing you could do is work on yourself, and the best thing I can do is work on myself.
Yeah.
I think that if we all had that mindset, let me work on myself,
Yeah.
and the best thing you could do for me is work on yourself.
Yeah.
And if you can we can have that mindset of each one working on each other. I think that would be the key to everything.
It would be amazing.
Yeah, it would be the key to everything.
Because we would stop externalizing, stop
Yeah.
the judgments,
Yeah,
and then whatever
It's-
space I bring love to, that means I
Right.
could offer it to you,
yeah.
right?
It's just I think
Yeah.
today
Yeah.
it's and again it's very hard to be single today. We deal with it, but it's not a swiping thing. It's not a looking for the one. It's becoming the one. It's
becoming the
really, it's so hard to tell this to people,
Yeah.
because they're like, what, maybe I'll meet somebody here, maybe I'll meet somebody there.
Right.
Maybe meet yourself first.
Yeah. Yeah.
People spend, $10,000, $20,000 on vacations. Spend $5,000 in therapy. Spend money on therapy.
Yeah.
Spend money on yourself. Spend money on the best therapy, the best mindset versus just external things.
Yes.
Instead of buying that $3,000 dress, $27,000 Birkin, spend $5,000 on yourself.
Yes.
It's so important. Nobody's telling you not to get a Birkin, but at least 10% of that should go on the mindset.
Yeah. Invest into you.
Invest into you, and I
Yeah.
think that's really the message specifically. And then men also they have to step up. They have to step it up, and they can't have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're getting engaged in a month.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is, but at the same time, you weren't fooling around with 2 girls while you met your wife. You created space.
Yes.
You had the right intentions.
That's right.
So that's another thing. You can hook up with random girls and expect your wife to come.
No, it doesn't work that way.
yeah, it doesn't work that way.
And despite all of our popular media, which is not a great source of information or truth, but we've all been kind of programmed to think there's such thing exists as no strings attached, intimacy, hookup culture, and that stuff is very damaging.
Damaging.
It's so damaging on so many levels.
Right.
Because not only are you exposing yourself to disease and unwanted things that you can't even imagine, but it's like I'm sharing a part of myself, the most vulnerable part of you, and something is bonding between us, and that gets ripped off, and then so I can't really bond well with the next person. It gets incrementally lesser every single time.
It's a klipa.
Yeah.
And I think this is why you'll see that. I think 90% of girls that are promiscuous, they've had some kind of sexual abuse.
Yeah.
It's because they want to downplay the idea of sex being relations, intimacy being something valuable.
Yeah.
It's just a transaction. What do you care?
Right,
So
exactly.
they have no problems going on these OnlyFans because at the end of the day, what's the difference? It's just an asset to get money.
Exactly.
Because they created such a klipa, they put such a shell around love that they downplayed it,
That's right.
and it became just a normal thing, you know.
And they devalue something
They
that's actually
devalue
very
it,
holy.
right?
That's
Correct.
very holy.
Correct.
Yes, and that creates massive consequence.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is why you see the divorce rate.
And there's
being
also
what
an
it is.
energetic. I tell people, when you sleep with somebody, you're exchanging energy.
Yes,
It
it's
has
profound.
energetic consequences. So when you wake up the
absolutely
next morning and you feel depressed and you just had relations with God, you're downloading his energy.
That's
I mean,
right.
what do you think? What do you think? Physical connections have energetic consequences.
They do. It's a spiritual bond,
Yeah.
and it's not as every person that you just, but every person they were with,
Right.
you just now shared with.
Wow. Wow.
Think about that.
Ooh.
You know,
Pretty
and-
scary.
and
It's a lot of downloads.
It's a lot of downloads, and how many people over there are like have massive traumas that they don't even understand. It's not even perceptible to them yet that their body's holding, right? And it's like, I want to get involved in that.
Wow.
Oof,
That's pretty chilling.
it's terrifying.
Just to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's why I tell people, don't get physical before you have relations. Try not to.
Yeah.
It's because, again, because of this energetic thing. And the second, because you're going to have dopamine you're going to cloud your judgment. You
Yeah.
don't even know if this is the right one, or is this just or are you craving, relations?
Exactly.
So there's so much, people call me, you're too tough, you're unreasonable. No, I'm telling you, I'm giving you clarity. Giving you clarity in your life.
Well, it's because God gave us clarity for a reason. And again, that goes back
he,
to
he
divine
hates
order.
one thing he does is he hates immorality.
Yeah.
He hates immorality, and he's very much into the giving and the receiving in the couple. Travis, such a pleasure. And
Gedale,
hopefully
thank you,
we
man.
can, we could change the world.
Man, well, that's what I'm trying to do, one person at a time. So
We can
thank you for
change the
everything you do,
world.
Gedale, too.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Travis, how do people reach you? Are you still taking clients, or you're booked?
I will have a wait list.
Okay.
Right now, I got a couple things open right now. I got some people finishing up,
Okay.
but I'll go ahead and leave my email
Email?
address.
Sure.
And then I have an Instagram too. And I'll
Perfect.
leave that maybe with this, and then they can reach out to me.
Sure. Great.